What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Captain's Run, aka the Rezzies Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Give us a text 0457 736 736. I want to know, now there's been big yarns around Cleary, around Munster, all the big names, but who's a smoky right now that isn't getting spoken about enough that you think is going to have a huge impact on Game 3? We just had some people in the studio talking about Dearden. Dearden's been quite solid in every game he's played this year. Isaiah Yeo is one for me that I think is just, really found his footing in Origin. I think he's someone that's going to impact Game 3. So let us know. Let us know. Who do you think is going to impact Game 3? Almost an undercover star of Game 3. And also, do not forget, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Head to grumpycoffee.com.au and get the best coffee in all the land. We've got pods, we've got whole bean, we've got ground, we've got it all at grumpycoffee.com.au. All right, Game 3. Oh, first of all, mate, how you going, brother?
Very well, mate. Very well. Glad to be with you again. It's always it's been a fun couple of Wednesdays.
Oh, thank you, bro.
I've quite enjoyed it. I've quite enjoyed it. Mate, you're not rocking the pop culture shirts.
No. I had a meeting this morning with Hutchie.
Okay.
The business breakfast has quite a few businesses that are partners with SEN. So I had to dress appropriately, mate. I go, listen, man, I'm not just a knockabout bloke. I can get dressed up if I need to, mate.
I've been getting around the pop culture shirts. I liked it. I liked it.
I've got a new one coming soon.
Oh.
Yeah, new one coming soon.
Teaser.
And it is as nerdy as it gets. Nerdier than Harry Potter, I'll put it that way.
What about nerdier than One Piece?
Yeah, probably.
In line.
Probably more nerdier. Probably more nerdier. You'll see.
This is going to be huge.
Going to be huge. Just can't wait for the debut. Can't wait for the debut. Okay, Game 3 tonight. The decider. 83,000 fans at a sold-out Accor Stadium. Interesting, at the breakfast today, there was maybe 20, 30 people there. Is anyone going tonight? And I thought there'd be a splattering of hands come up, like 2 or 3. Mate, it's bloody more than half the room was going tonight. So got mates that are going. It seems like everyone's going. It's the hottest ticket in town. Cannot wait. So the Blues win Game 1, 18-6. Maroons win Game 2, 26-24. Obviously it's a huge talking point. Munster's father passing. I don't begrudge anyone having this as a talking point. I really don't. He's a captain of the state. He's a public person. And I think everyone means really, really well when they talk about how he's going to have the game of his life and it's going to motivate him, for sure, because I think his father would probably want that as well. Me personally, it's more important for me. I just want Munster to be in a good headspace. Whether he's playing, he's not playing, whether he plays well, whether he plays poorly. I'm really just hoping that my hope is that he gets 80 minutes of respite of not thinking of it. That's really my hope. I totally understand people saying that he's going to have a big game. I really, really do get it. But having dealt with Munster a few times and someone I would really consider a friend, whatever makes him happier, that's what I hope happens. I really do, because he's an absolute legend of a bloke. I'll never forget when I started Bloke Beer. He was one of the biggest names in rugby league, a Queensland icon at this stage. He'd had that incredible series. He'd done so much in footy at this point, won premierships, everything. When you're usually dealing with guys like this, like they can charge a substantial amount to be a part of a business campaign. Obviously, me being a small business, and at the time it was just me, we still paid him, but nowhere near what he should have been paid. And I'll never forget that he came all the way up from Melbourne, did the whole shoot all day with me, never complained, so much so, finally, actually a funny story. So we got to about, and this was Rogue Munster. This was back when Munster was still a bit of a youngish pup, 25, 26. And he still had a bit of rogue in him. Now he's straightened his life up, and he has a beer every now and then, but he's a bit more disciplined now because he's older. He's a leader. Anyway, so we got up there. We're in a pub having beers, taking photos, and he gets to about 3 p.m. So he's had a few beers. He's feeling it, and you could just see his eyes shift a little bit. And he goes, "Hey, Kempy, what I'll do is I'll put me flight back to tomorrow and we'll just go and have a big one tonight." And I was like, "Mate, I can't be the one responsible for you not going home to your missus tonight." He didn't have a kid or anything at this stage, so he was free as anything. This is 2019/20. And yeah, you saw the rat bag come out and him going, not even the rat bag, just the typical knockabout Aussie bloke going, got a few beers into him saying, let's have a go. But I said, no, Munster, I'm getting you on that plane. I'm getting you home. Absolute legend of a bloke. So I got so much time for him. But regardless of how you feel about the whole situation, it is a personal. It is something that is going to bring out a lot of emotion in the Queensland side, and I think that Billy Slater is going to have to walk a really fine line here because you don't want to go out there too emotional. You don't want to go out there in the first 10 minutes and go absolutely crazy and either, have this huge high emotion and then when the game kind of settles down a little bit, what happens is all that adrenaline, it just dumps and you lose all this energy and you actually become quite lethargic. And it happens in a lot of people when they debut. They've got all this emotion built up. Then they get on the field and they just run around like a chicken with its head cut off because they are just so emotionally invested in their debut. And within a couple sets, they're fatiguing because they've had this crazy emotional adrenaline dump. And so it's going to be really interesting for Billy Slater. And now he is from the Melbourne Storm, who are the kings of clinical approaches to game. Like, it's the one part of the Melbourne Storm that people don't really talk about. But, like, the Melbourne Storm have never been known as a hyper-aggressive side that shoots out of the line and has this forward pack that's a bunch of absolute maniacs. Whereas, like, for example, a really good comparison is the Roosters. The Roosters have always been known as a hyper-aggressive rugby league side that really want to intimidate the opposition. Whereas the Melbourne Storm, for so long, have been clinical. And I actually spoke about this on my podcast yesterday and just discussed how if you actually go back and watch the 2020 Grand Final with Penrith Panthers and Melbourne Storm, go back and watch them walking out. So the Penrith Panthers, they're sprinting out and they're all young, full of so much energy. Like, you can see they are G'd up. And then it switches to the Storm, and they're walking out, literally walking out. And it just showed you the different mind states that both teams were in. And if you go and watch that first 20 minutes, what happened? It was Panthers were frantic, like absolutely frantic in that first 10 minutes or so. And the Melbourne Storm just hung on, and then boom, error happens, the whole game changes. Essentially, they lose the game in the first half. And so that's why I look at Billy Slater. And funnily enough, it's quite ironic because in the same time that Billy Slater is going to have to be dancing with this emotion and making sure it's channeled in the right direction, it's actually come out of the Blues camp that they're probably not going to walk down that long tunnel with the Sandman Metallica playing with all the New South Wales greats on either side because it generates too much emotion in the young fellas and it makes them go out there without a calm, clinical kind of mindset. So it really is kind of the talking point heading into this for me is how does both coaches handle the emotion heading into this game? For example, how does Laurie Daly get the Blues up enough to go with Queensland for the first 5 minutes, but not up so much that they also, have a huge crash after it? So it really, for me, the talking point heading into Game 3 tonight is how do the coaches handle the emotion that has been injected into this Game 3 because of what has happened? It is really, really, it's a really interesting, discussion. What do you reckon, mate? What do you reckon is going to happen here?
It's a tough one. There's a great text there talking about asking whether or not you've experienced anything like that with losing Munster and then having to get up for the week after. I lost my old man a couple of years ago, and it's something that you still think about constantly. So the idea of Munster having to go out and put that aside, I really don't see it happening. Do you know what I mean? Like in his head, it's he's got a different mentality to me.
Yeah.
But in his head, I think it'll be a constant factor.
Yeah, I think that, and I just try to put myself in that position. All I'd be thinking is I know my dad would want me to be out here ripping.
Big time.
You know what I mean? Like, that's probably the motivation I'm assuming Munster is working with. Like, if he thought about himself, not selfishly, but himself, about his feeling, of course he probably wouldn't want to. He'd be struggling a little bit. But I think the motivation of, I know for a fact my dad would want me out here and giving it my all.
Big time.
I think that's probably going to keep ticking across in his mind when he does get a little bit rattled, he has a second to think, he'll probably reinforce to himself, no, my dad would want me out here. My dad would want me out. I think that's going to be what's going to be pushing Munster. But it's a really, really brave situation that he couple days after a father passing, there is not a single person in this world that would begrudge him saying, I'm going to step down for this Game 3. Not a single person in this world. So really, really brave effort from Cam Munster. It's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight. Like, look, the Blues obviously are fair favourites. You go across that team, you look at them in every single position. they basically are a tier one player. So they're basically in the top 3 of their position. I mean, you've even got Hudson Young on the bench, who right now is the form back row of the competition this year so far. Whereas you look at Queensland, they've probably got 2 or 3 tier 1 players in their position form-wise right now. And so if I'm New South Wales, it really is, it's all about just, even if they get 16-0 behind, let's say Queensland come out and it's an avalanche, just an absolute avalanche, and New South Wales look up and it's 16-0 down, like, I would just be saying, boys, do not panic. Last game, we completed at 50% in the first half, essentially 50, it was like 55 or whatever. We completed at 50%, and we still should have won game 2 if Lomax kicks all those goals. Obviously, I wouldn't say if Lomax kicks all those goals to the team, but I would, that's a really good point for them to go, we can stay as patient as anything. We can get behind by 16, we know we can run it down. And so that's why, if I'm Laurie Daly, I'm just reinforcing into them boys, high completion, don't panic. High completion, don't panic. Queensland are the ones that need to play the game of their lives to win. We can play it at 8 out of 10 and get the job done because we are just much stronger across the park. And so I think for New South Wales, it's all just about patience and staying calm. For Queensland, it is almost the opposite. It is, boys, we need the game of our lives. This is the game of our lives right now. So, and when you ask that question of we need the game of our lives, that's a low percentage ask, but it's the only way that Queensland win this game, in my opinion. So I think that Queensland have got to risk it all. They've got to be flat foot. Anytime they see a half chance, try to take it, because they're not going to win the game 8-6. I don't think. I think in today's day and age, with how fast the game is, but also with how easily New South Wales Blues have shown they can score tries, you're going to need to score probably 20-plus points to beat this Blues side. And whereas the only way I see this being a tight game is if New South Wales win like 12-0 or whatever. Like I don't see Queensland being able to win an 8-6 grind fest. And so that's why the ball is in New South Wales court. It is a conservative, patient game. Even if they get out to a bit of a lead, stay conservative, kick into corners, build your pressure. We can strip them of numbers. I'd be, honestly, if I were the Blues, I'd be going over video showing the boys they've stripped us of numbers maybe once this whole series. So two whole games, Queensland have stripped us of numbers. I think it was the Toya pass to Hammer in the whole series. So whereas we have stripped them of numbers like so many times, like 4, 5, 6. And so that's why I just be patience if I'm the Blues. Anyway, give us a text 0457 736 736. Make sure to message us in. Who do you think is going to be the underrated star of Game 3? We're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty more to talk about. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Got a lot of texts here. 0457 736 736. Brought to you by Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions. Save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Alrighty, text here. Hi, Dan, and I received my bloke jersey the other day. Love, and will pack in my luggage on my overseas trip to Greece on Saturday. Peter from Rockdale. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy your holiday. Why do fullbacks and wingers these days feel the need to jump for the ball when there's no one near them? The percentage of dropping increases. The cover now tries to block chases rather than stop. Okay, it's quite a long series. Anyway, basically, why do fullbacks jump? It's because if you jump in the air, you can't be tackled. So it makes it so that at least you've got no contact on you as the ball hits your hands. Whereas if you don't jump, you can get absolutely jammed as you catch the ball. So that's why people jump. And also, if you don't jump, but someone else jumps, they can jump over you and catch the ball. So like to know, it's very easy to look on TV with replays and different camera angles and go, oh, you should have known not to jump. But when you've got your eyes on the ball and you don't actually, you should be looking at the ball. You shouldn't be looking at the players running in. You don't actually know exactly where a player is, attacking player. So that's why you see that jumping. Hey, Kempy, just our weekly Daniel Tupou appreciation message. Absolutely, bro. Tupou the GOAT. I reckon Shiba could shoot the lights out and get player of the match. Hope so. Goaties. Oh, yeah, here he goes. Typical Kemp, fake Queensland supporter. Says Queensland have to have the game of their lives to win. Played half a game of footy, game 2 and 1. Imbecile Kemp. Radio Fruit Loop. That's why we're nearly $3 in the betting odds. Like, what are you talking about? And also, I've actually punched on with a New South Wales man on a footy field. What have you done other than sit on your little phone talking about imbeciles? Jesus, give me a break. Now, also text here, Jeffrey Isler, proud Philo, could be related. I don't know if that's towards us. Maybe it is. Afternoon, mate. My smoky for a great game is New South Wales hooker Reece Robson. Reckon he's got a big game in him tonight. Blues 22-20, the surfing night. Yeah, I really reckon Reece Robson's. Like Origin career so far has actually been underrated. And he'll probably stay underrated forever because I don't ever think he's going to like set the world alight. But he's going to be one of those players that when he's not there, you'll actually notice how much you miss him. And it's all the little things. Like, for example, he's one of the bigger number 9s in the competition. He's probably actually the biggest number 9 in the competition. I can't express to you enough how important it is whenever someone looks up. So whenever a Queensland forward looks up and looks at the line, whenever they see like a Harry Grant or a, Cookie or a Appy, any number 9 usually in this game, you go, okay, who am I running at? Tino, Josh Papali'i, or Harry Grant? I'm running at Harry Grant. The good thing is with Reece Robson is he hits about the same as most of the other front rowers. Now, he's not as big as Payne Haas, but he's more explosive and smaller and kind of off, like he can get under you a bit better. And so a lot of Queensland forwards, there's no real spot to run at in that pack compared to most teams. Like, as I said, usually in a team, your 9 is a bit of a spot in defence. Even if they're the best technical defender in the team, they're still usually not winning the contact. Like usually, even if they're chopping blokes low, that's still a quick play the ball for the big defender. And so basically, that's where Reece Robson, for me, if he wasn't in the side, it's all the little time. You go, oh, they got to quick play the ball again? Like where did that come from? And it'll be actually his absence that you'll notice more than his presence because he's just so good at all the little things. And also his service is great. Very rarely when he does run, he gets dominated in contact. So I think Reece Robson, he's just been so good for New South Wales, and I think he's going to be a mainstay for quite long. Like, of course, Api Koroisau's attack is the best in the competition if you're a number 9. Like, it's honestly, him and Harry Grant. I'd probably even have Api just above, just with his silkiness. But him and Harry Grant are like leagues above everyone else when it comes to attack. But Reece Robson has the best tackle efficiency of any 9 in the competition right now. So yeah, it's a vital part of Origin that doesn't get talked about enough. It is defence because it is such a high quality game. If you have even one defender that is even just slightly off, like how many games, go back to a couple of years ago when Queensland won game 1 out of nowhere. That was just a player out of position with a split second off. Munster breaks the line, Hammer scores. Like that's how close Origin is. So I think Reece Robson's always going to be underrated into when it comes to his Origin career. I got a text here. Have you ever experienced something similar to what Cam Munster has gone through this past week? Losing his dad, but still having to play footy. What did you do to get yourself in the right mindset? I've been very fortunate, mate, that I had never really experienced that. I lost my grandfather before I made my debut. And what's like it's not very close to it, but a similar-ish thing where my grandfather was really the only he was the only rugby league fan in my family. Like he was a die-hard Broncos fan. And the only memory I have with him is sitting at his knee watching Renouf play. And so even the fact that it happened long before, like it was probably about a year before I made my debut, I still regret the fact that he never got to see me run out in a Broncos jersey. So I can only imagine even deeper with a father. The most tiniest, smallest silver lining is that Munster's father got him to see him, captain his state. Like that's such a, I know it's you wouldn't replace him for the world, but at least that, just at least he got to see his son captain his state. Okay, text here. Hey, Kempy, love the show, mate. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Super keen to see Nathan dominate tonight, so people will stop with the ridiculous comments about him not being elite until he dominates at Origin level. And although a sour Dragons fan, I'd love to see Lomax rip it up, at least, but not last. Hope Munster has an absolute blinder of a game in a losing team. He's a unique fellow and hard not to like. Go well, legend, Matt. Yeah, and vice versa. It's quite. I would love Cleary to kill it in a losing side. A little bit similar to how you feel about Munster, because, I understand the claim of if Cleary wants to be considered one of the greatest ever, he needs to dominate an Origin series, or at least in a big Origin moment. I'm with you. But that's a world away from, has Cleary played well at Origin? He has. He's won 2 man of the matches. The problem is, though, if he loses tonight, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of pressure. Put it this way. If they lose tonight, first of all, he's been injured for a lot of deciders, but he's lost 2 deciders, game 3s. he loses tonight, I would say that most years where Cleary is fit over the last 5 years, most New South Welshmen, not all, but most have said, he's our guy. He's our number 7. I think if they lose tonight, it will put a whole reset on that jersey. I think heading into next year, there's not going to be many Blues fans that say, he's our guy if he's fit. It will truly be a full-on reset, and the best man gets the jersey. And I think that if they lose tonight, it'll be a shootout next year between Moses, Katoa, and Cleary. And I think that you could even argue Moses would have a little bit of a step ahead of Cleary because he has won the decider up in Brisbane. And I think that if Cleary is to lose tonight, he would have to work his way back into that 7 jersey rather than not necessarily having a mortgage on it, but, because he's done so much at club level, you'd be crazy not to select him. And so I can see that out. However, I think it's all set up. I really do think the stage is set for Cleary to have the game of his life, and I think the stage is set for him to just basically almost a full stop on his career. I know he's still got 5 years left in it, but almost like, okay, I've dominated 4 premierships. Here's my decider that I need to win when we need to get it done. I think that it's going to happen tonight. I really believe that this will be a Cleary moment. What do you reckon, mate?
It's got a little bit of the 2019 Mitch Pearce about it for me. When he came back in and he was part of that Game 3 winning side, 2019, with the Teddy try, where Pearce kind of not silenced the haters completely, but he got the monkey off the back.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it feels like tonight. I was saying to Matty before, it does also feel like a little bit of a 2020 vibe where Queensland are going to just stand up. So that scares me too. But yeah, I'm hoping for a bit of a Cleary masterclass.
Cleary masterclass. All right, we're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to talk about. So much footy to talk about today. I'm just looking up at the screen right now, NRL 360 on Fox Sports. And I swear, I reckon Queensland keep Nate Miles in the camp just to piss off New South Welshmen. Because he was still playing in the days where there was truly hate towards the players, whereas I think most, obviously you hate the state, like I hate New South Wales today. And I think of all the, you guys think you're better than us, the chip on the shoulder, all that stuff. But the actual players specifically, I think that we've become we know all the players a bit more than back in the day, that it's very hard to hate them as a person. Whereas, I reckon Nate Miles, we just use his head to roll up. You put a picture of Nate Miles on a TV to a New South Welshman, he's getting rolled up.
That's it. You know how Tom and Eddie talk about being brought into Manly for Boy and the Boys?
Yeah.
That's what you guys are doing with Nate
Miles.
Kind of returning it.
Yeah.
He's just in camp. I'm not even sure what he does for the actual, day-to-days. But, they chuck him up on NRL 360, and we catch a glimpse and get furious.
Get furious. Understandably so. He was seriously, he would be playing so average on Clubland, and then he would go into Origin and absolutely rip.
Some of those Titans years, where it's like, there was question marks around it, and then he'd go in and just brain it, and you're like, oh, that's why.
Yeah, you'd be at the Titans, and whether it was the Titans or, probably was the Titans because they struggled for so long now. But then he would just get into, and every year you'd probably look at it, a New South Welshman, and you'd be like, okay, Nate Miles is coming in. He's terribly out of form. Surely he's going to be a spot in defence, and then he would just play outstanding. Okay, got some text here, guys. I think Cleary chat is worthy because Moses won the decider in Queensland last year. That's harder than a decider in your home state. If you can get it done here in a team that should not lose, if he can't get it done, I can see New South Wales going in another direction. But then another chat here. Cleary is the greatest player in the comp for the past 5-ish years. Stupid to think anyone will take his spot. Mate, I think you'd be surprised. If he... Obviously, I think he will play well tonight. But if he doesn't, if he's quiet tonight, I think you'll find there'll be a lot of people that say, that jersey should be up for grabs next year. Even if he... there is no denying. I already truly believe that Nathan Cleary could retire today, and he has a resume that is good enough to be considered a great. Not necessarily the greatest ever, but a great. I really do. He's got 2 or 3 Origin Series wins. He's got multiple Origin Man of the Matches. He's obviously won 4 premierships, 5 grand finals. I truly believe he could retire tomorrow and be a great. But I do think there is an argument to be made that Moses went up to Queensland. He won. That's just a fact. And, vice versa. How many times have Queensland selected a guy that isn't necessarily the best player on paper, but what does he do? He suits that arena a little bit better. But me personally, I think the stage is set for Cleary. I really do. I got a full faith in Cleary to have an absolute big one. Absolute big one. Okay. Every jersey should be up for grabs every year. Yeah, I know that's like a... I know we like to think that. I know that we sit there, but you've got to be honest here. That means that you're purely picking on form. That means that, okay, this year so far, if every jersey is up for grabs every year and you're purely picking on form, Katoa should be a 7. Like, facts. Like, he has been the best 7 this year so far. And there's no denying that. But it's not really the case. You have to weigh everything up. Like, for example, if you say every jersey should be up next year, if Brian To'o is out for, well, I'll just say 10 weeks of I'll say 8 weeks of the start of next year, and he comes back and plays well for 2 weeks, or not even well, just solidly, you reckon he's not getting selected? Come on, man. Like, what he's done in Origin, you know he's going to get the job done. Okay, last text here. Compare Munster to Cleary in Origin, not Clubland. There's the answer. It's a great point. Yeah, like, you look at Cleary's resume in Clubland, it's incredible. You look at Munster's, it's still really, really good. A couple of premierships. But, like, if Munster didn't have Origin, he would be just known as a really good, of his generation, a good 6. But Origin has taken Munster's... here's an even better example. DCE. So DCE without Origin, the questions would be asked. He's been at that club for 10 years now, and they've made the finals, like, I think twice whilst he's been there. Maybe 2 or 3 times. I'll be generous, 2 or 3 times. But because DCE went onto Origin, a harder arena, and did what he did, it cemented that, okay, whatever the issues are at Manly, they're clearly not DCE. And he, so that's a really good example. Anyway, we actually got some really awesome audio from one of the greatest players of all time, Joey Johns, on Freddie in the 8th here. Have a listen.
In Origin 2, when he was coming out of the tunnel in Perth, he's wearing that number 6 jersey for Queensland, which is as famous as it gets, but also as captain, he had that head on. And sometimes with someone like Munster, if they have a Y, and he's representing not only Queensland, but his father, Stephen, who would have loved Queensland, but also the King. Munster, he's going to have the biggest game of his life. I have no doubt that he's going out to absolutely shoot the lights out, which is terrifying.
There you go. I tell you what, at least game 2, my God, when you saw Munster walk out, he did look like a different man. When a man shaves his mo, look out. If a man voluntarily shaves his moustache, you're just done. You're done. If you're about to fight a bloke and he had a moustache when you organise the fight, but then he walks into the fight and he has no moustache, just knock yourself out. Seriously, it'll be a better day. It'll be a better day for you. Now, we also got a quote here from Payne Hasler and Brian To'o, having been cleared for Origin 3. Laurie Daly at the captain's run said, they were good. Brian trained all sessions. Payne did a little bit. We always knew going into the game that Payne would be on restricted duties and he'll be ready for game night. Unless anything happens between now and then, which I don't expect it will be 1-17. Now, the question, like, I will say, New South Wales, there's been... Laurie Daly has copped a bit of slack for keeping Stefano in the squad, keeping the same 17. And although I would have gone with Keon, I think Daly and Bellamy deserve a bit of credit for... I mean, what has been the knock on New South Wales for literally ever? It has been win, lose or draw. After game 1, we just, like, by the time we get to game 3, like, half the squad's different. Doesn't matter what we do, half the squad's different. And I think that you got to give them credit for going, no, we came in with a plan that this was the best squad for the series. You don't pick an 18 and 19 just for one game. It's for the series. And as I said, although I would have gone with Keon, probably even initially, off game 1, I do give them credit for going, no, this was our plan. Let's stick to the plan. Let's not deviate from it. There are certain things that we selected Stefano for, most notably his defence. It's one of the better defensive front rowers in the competition. Let's stick to that plan. So I don't think Daly is getting enough credit for that. Like, it's a bit of a, well, hang on a sec. You always give New South Wales crap for not picking and sticking. And then the series that we do pick and stick, okay, you want me to change this, that, and the next thing. Now, granted, I know it's a bit more nuanced than that, but that is what it kind of boils down to. What do you reckon, mate?
It is classic us, though, to be completely like I'm a Blues fan, and when things don't go well, and you start to look at who to bring in because that's what's been ingrained in your brain since you were a kid. You just go, oh well, so and so didn't perform, we make changes.
Yep.
Then we don't make changes, and we go, oh well, why not there either?
Yeah.
Like it's a lose-lose, and Laurie's he's picked the same 17. There's been a lot of pressure around Stefano, whether or not you bring a key on, whether or not you give Terrell May a run. He's stuck with the 17. He's been loyal, and somehow he still cops it.
Yeah, and also I will say this, like, you got to remember, when you're picking for Origin, and this is what Michael Maguire did so well, and it's what Queensland have done so well for so long, you're not picking the 17 best players, you're picking the 17 best players for the type of footy you want to play. And that last sentence always gets left. It's always like, oh, pick the best 17 players. But it's like, for example, let's say I'll use Terrell May, even though, again, I would have had Terrell May in my selection. But if you've got Terrell May in your forward pack, he plays very differently to a Stefano. Way differently. So here's a perfect example. So Terrell May has the ability to offload quite a lot. So he's going to hit and spin, get meters, turn around, offload. Now, if you have a very structured game plan, you don't want that. Although an offload is great and it can get you extra meters, you're going to end up on the field at a point that you don't want to be at. Whereas if you've got a guy like Stefano, he's hitting, he's finding his front, and you're exactly where your halves want you to end up. And so, although Terrell May is a individually better player at the moment than Stefano, he may not suit what Daly is going for. He may want Max King and Stefano to be very up and down. And when I mean up and down, I mean you do your hit up, you find your front, and then you play the ball. You don't fight and contact. You don't look for an offload. And so you have to always remember, a superstar team will beat a team of superstars. And I feel in Origin sometimes, especially with the Blues, that gets lost in the noise a little bit. And I think that they should be applauded for having a specific game plan, picking 17 blokes for it, and sticking to it.
Well, that's what worked so well last year with Maguire.
Yep.
Obviously, it was the effort-based players. He was very sort of vocal about, we've assessed the metrics. It's the efforts.
Yep.
That's what we want. When there was rumours that he was going to pick Zach Lomax, and people were like, he's not in the top 3 in the state at that time. And then literally he says it's all effort. It's effort.
Yep.
And then Lomax goes to another level and just proves it wrong that you design it for the game plan.
Yeah. I mean, look at Jake Trbojevic's selection. He played 15 minutes in the first half of game 1, I think. Jake Trbojevic was selected purely for everything he brings off the field. All the leadership qualities around camp, about making sure the boys are in the right mindset. Like, that is, Jake Trbojevic wasn't one of the better front rowers in the game at that stage, but was he one of the best cultural players in the game? Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's a great example. I remember listening to the CEO of Penrith Panthers, and they said they got Appy to the club because they felt that Luai and Cleary were still a bit too young to fully run a team. And as soon as they felt that Cleary and Appy had matured enough, Cleary and Luai had matured enough to run a team, that's when they allowed Appy to take a contract elsewhere, because they didn't need a number 9 that ran the team. They needed a number 9 that just got the ball to Cleary. And so a lot of the times you want to be looking at selections, and selections need to be about what is best for the game plan, not necessarily who's the best player. Because here's another good example. Dylan Edwards is a very specific type of fullback. Now, he is so different to Reece Walsh. You're like, they couldn't be more different. If you've got a very specific game plan where you need your fullback to have 25 carries and run for 200 plus meters, you shouldn't be picking Walshy. But if you need extra spark in attack, if you need a fullback that can create something from nothing with his passing game, then you pick Reece Walsh. And so, yeah. Alrighty, we're going to head to a break. After break, plenty more to talk about, including a preview of the round, including Horo joining us in about 15 minutes. So plenty more to talk about. Oh, we got a great text here. Absolute dribble. Here we go. My God, you talk a lot of nonsense. The grand final dwarfs Origin for importance and relevance for all New South Wales fans. This is not looking good for you, New South Wales fans. Origin is a sideshow created for Queenslanders. My God. Off the top of my head, Munster has played at least 3 grand final shockers. He's only played 1 grand final shocker where he got sent for 10 twice. Not average games, but outright shockers. And DCE, spare me. He has been a failure at club level for almost 10 years. No player has run more metre backwards, sideways, and in circles than DCE. Time to turn this Queensland drivel off. The Wolf woohoo.
Oh, the Wolf.
Oh, is he coming in your stuff?
He's regular. He's always on the Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, he's always on the Sunday crunch time. I was trying to, when you can get a feel for text too.
Okay.
But that one.
Because the Reptile's another guy that's
Reptile's thereabouts.
And the Reptile's always negative. Always negative.
Look, there are a few repeat offenders when it comes to negative comments, Kempy, but that's part of the game, mate.
But I will say this, the Reptile, he'll give it to you a positive when it's worth it.
Okay.
Yeah, so
all right.
He'll give it to it, but most of the time he's putting crap on you.
Yeah. Yep.
But the Scope's joined us, mate. How you feeling?
Yeah, mate.
Tonight, mate.
I'm excited. We're starting to build into it now. Less than 8 hours from kickoff. A highly emotional build up to a decider. It's been because of the situation, and understandably so. You really haven't seen much at all from either camp outside of the devastating news with Cameron and his family. So I guess it's just going to be where everyone's just holding it in. And then I think the way that both teams, even New South Wales, show Cameron the utmost respect is just go hard.
Yeah.
Go hard for 80 minutes, go hard against each other, and just let the boys play it out. That's what and that's what I'm looking forward to. I hope we see that tonight. And there's been a lot of criticism in the first two Origins. I thought Ashley Klein was very favourable to New South Wales in Game 1 and then to Queensland in Game 2. I just want to see the players determine the result tonight.
Please.
I don't care which way it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, set a standard and then kind of stick to that standard. I hope. And what I mean by that is I'll go back to the 2023 Grand Final. I'll never forget. So we were Broncos vs Panthers, and there was barely any penalties in the first 20. And the amount of times Panthers were holding the Broncos down, like the whole crowd was going off. And so I was going, this is nonsense. And so I thought that was a bad reffing. Anyway, we get into the second half, and he let the game flow, and Broncos were holding down a lot, and he let it flow, and that's what I hope happens. Anyway, got to go to a break. After the break, we'll wrap up the first hour, then we've got a huge next hour with the big fella, Justin Horo. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, a.k.a. the Resi Run, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee. Hey, go to grumpycoffee.com.au. Get your coffee today. It's the best coffee in all the land. We've got pods, we've got bean, whole bean, we've got ground. Also brought to you by Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions, save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Skip a scope. What is the biggest talking point outside of Munster heading into this game tonight?
I've been thinking about this a lot.
Sorry.
So there's two ways I want the result to go, or a way each for the result I want for both states tonight. First one is I want Money to be the player of the match. I want the state, I want the players to rally around him. I want him to win the Wally Lewis medal. And I just want him to have this moment after arguably one of the toughest weeks of his life. And even the decision, making the decision like it sounded like it happened straight away.
Yep.
Sitting with Billy in his room, having a conversation, going, look, I'm going to need a couple of days, but I'm going to be there to play.
Yeah.
And he did turn up. He turned up with his family yesterday at Captain's Run. So my ideal situation for tonight is Cam kills it, Queensland win in a close game, and he gets man of the match, his second man of the match of the series, and a Wally Lewis medal. If Queensland aren't to win, I really want Nathan to have his moment.
Yeah, 100%.
I really do.
Yeah.
And what I want Nathan to do in this series, in particular, in this game, I want him to be selfish, Kempy.
Okay.
I want him to be selfish.
Bit of arrogance almost. You're just like, this is my time. I'm taking it.
100%,
Yeah.
mate. Like, if you think about, what is his, and it's an easy answer, what's his best moment of all time, of his career?
When he said, this is my moment against the Brisbane Broncos. And
23 grand final.
I'm better than everyone, and I'm playing like I was playing in under-10s.
There's two really important factors that happened in that game. The one that stands out that everyone talks about is Jerome toughed it out through that series and then was busted and just couldn't finish the game.
Yep.
So everyone talks about the heroics of our man up in Queensland is
Cogger.
escaping me. Jack Cogger comes on, great job.
Yep.
And he will be remembered for that as well. People forget that Isaiah Yeo went off for 15 minutes during that period as well. Head knock.
Yeah.
So Yoey was off. Luai was off. Nath looked around at the rest of the team going, my big three ain't here anymore. It's a big one.
Fair.
And no disrespect to Dylan Edwards, but, it's Yoey.
Probably hadn't developed into the top tier of that team yet.
Just more so the control of it, Kempy.
Yeah.
Dylan Edwards puts the final touches, and you know what? He almost starts the set.
Yep.
Nathan, Isaiah, and Jerome control the middle part, and then he always finishes it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So he's the start and finish. But in the meat and potatoes, Nate looked around and goes, Yoey's not out here. Jerome's not out here.
Yep.
Cogger, this is exactly what I want you to do. Get me the ball in this position. And he went after it, and he had the best moment of his career.
Yep.
Those two are playing, but I still want him to have that mindset.
Okay.
I want him to, you know, in the most polite possible way you can say that to your two good mates. This is my game. This is my moment. Get me to my spots, and I'll get it done.
Well, you know, it's a really good insight because you speak to people about 2005 when Joey came into camp, and he walked in there, you know, basically huffing and puffing and blew the house down. He was like, this is not good enough, you know, directing the boys around the park. Just basically, it was almost like a dad coming in and spanking everyone. It was that when you speak to the boys, though, they go, mate, as soon as Joey walked in, it was different. We knew that, like, we have to go to a new level to meet Joey's demands. So it's a really good point. I like that idea and that thought process that you've brought up for Cleary is instead of Cleary, because he's so, like, if you've ever sat down and chatted with Cleary, for how great he is so chill and calm and not boisterous in your face like that.
He's so respectful, mate.
Yeah.
He's so humble.
Yeah.
Like, his humility is, like, it would blow you away.
Oh.
Because I reckon sometimes the fans, if you don't get the opportunity to spend some time with, you know, athletes or whatever it may be, you may go, oh, he's just putting that on for the cameras. He's not really that humble.
That's his personality.
Mate, if anything, that's the last little bit that's holding him. And it took Jerome and Yoey not being on the field for him to go, all right, like, let's go. I'll just do this by myself. And that's what I want him to do tonight. I want him to make it clear to Yoey and Jerome and Latrell and Critter and Dill and Payne Haas, like, I'm running this ship.
I'm the captain. Get on my ship.
I'm the captain.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll get us home.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that. I think you saw shades of it in game one. He had like 25 runs or something like that.
Yep.
Which is evidence to suggest that he's maybe in that mindset of like. And I know game two was different. He was clearly injured. I still am of the belief if Moses was fully fit, Cleary doesn't play game two. I think that he played because he knew if I'm not on the field, we don't have any sevens really right now ready to take on this burden. But I really like that with Cleary in regards to the mindset because the skill is all there. Like, he's got one of the best running games, best passing games, best kicking games, all the experience in the world. The last piece of the puzzle really is it's almost the arrogance to say, get out of my way, boys. Just get on me back pretty much. Do whatever I say, get where, almost, it's like you said, if one of the other big dogs like Critter doesn't get where he wants him to get, I would love to see Cleary, get angry at him.
Yeah.
Mate, why aren't you? Like, because that's exactly what Joe would have done in the back end of his
100%.
career. He would be blowing up at his back rowers. I heard a story recently. I think it was one of his back rowers was telling one of the media outlets about the fact that Joey lost his mind at him because he ran a line that was like a metre off the line that he was supposed to run. It's a great point, mate. Great point. What do you think? Are the odds accurate? 290-ish for the
That's about right. New South Wales are a more talented team. I thought they were a lot more dominant in game one than the scoreline reflected because of the missed goals, and that's been a theme that they've got to get sorted for tonight. If there are any chances as well, they've got to kick at a much higher rate than they've been kicking. And they were coming home strong. I felt like they just ran out of time. They were about 5 minutes short in game two. So all the heroics that it took from Cam Munster and Reuben Cotter and Kurt Capewell, they're going to have to do that and then go again because they did it for 40 minutes and then they parked the bus and got nervous and tried to hang on. They're not going to be able to do it in game three.
No way.
But there's even a part of me that's like, all right, they're going to obviously be super emotional in this game and going to go after it.
Yeah.
I hope they don't blow the candle out too much early. You know what I mean?
It's funny you say that because before, in the first hour, I said the biggest challenge for both coaches is not getting too emotional.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, for New South Wales, you've obviously read all the articles how they're not going to walk down that tunnel this time because they don't want to get too emotional. I reckon that's Billy Slater's biggest challenge. How do you make sure because motivation is no longer an issue at all. It's game three. It's never an issue,
For sure.
but it definitely isn't one. But how do you make sure it's not too much, And
I could see a world just because of the the character, I know it's state against state, and we always go back to it, mate against mate. Like people, the New South Wales will be feeling the emotion because of the Queensland as well, like because of the situation, and they play together for Australia. And some of them have, been teammates over the years. So, it'll be the first 20 minutes is going to be. I think it's going to be back and forth. And like I said before, I think, even guys that have had rivalries with him over the years, guys like Liam Martin, right? They always play on the same edge and they go at each other, and there's always, a bit of push and shove. Like Liam, you want Liam Martin to maintain that out of respect for money and the contest and going after it, because I reckon his old man would have loved that side of not only money, but also the players that he plays against and the mongrel that they got in him. So, the first 20 minutes is going to be, it's going to be brutal. New South Wales did what a lot of New South Wales teams had done, not been able to do before them, go up in Queensland and get a decider. And now Queensland have the opportunity to come back and get it in New South Wales at a core stadium the following year.
Is it this simple for New South Wales? And I don't know if it is, but is it this simple? Completed 85%, you win the game.
Yeah, I think they do. If they have an even share of possession, or not, something not as dramatic as like a 60-40 split and the penalty count and the 6 against that we've seen in game 2. I do think they're the superior team. But in saying that, how many times have we seen results where an underdog's got the job done and you never expected it? And it's not like, I don't view this team for Queensland like I did with the heroics that they were able to pull off in 2020. Like that team was legitimately a team of battlers.
We went over the team list yesterday on my podcast, bro. Seriously,
respectfully to that team, and people like even media personalities who called that team the worst Queensland team of all time, they got hammered. They weren't that wrong. They weren't that wrong. That team was put together with a whole bunch of guys that just weren't there either. Got an opportunity through injuries or hadn't reached the peak of their careers at that point. And
like even like a guy like Tino, who
was still a baby.
He was a baby. And this is how our depth was. We lost 3 of our starters from game 1. Coates, Brimo, and Philip Sammy.
Yep.
And even them are not our starters. So we lost them in game 1. By game 3, so Tino was a baby then. He was coming off the bench for Melbourne Storm. Dale Finucane, the starting 13 for Storm, was coming off the bench for the Blues.
Yeah.
That just shows you how the difference in the teams are. Even like Lindsay Collins was relatively new to Origin. I remember that same year, I said if Lindsay Collins keeps playing this way, he'll make Origin. Got absolutely annihilated by people because everyone's like, who are you even talking about? Lindsay Collins, you're kidding yourself. That's how far away a lot of these players that now we look at them and go, oh, hang on a sec. There's Kurt Catewell, there's Lindsay Collins, there's Tina. Back then, these guys weren't Origin players.
That series skyrocketed their form at club level and then Origin level for the next 2 or 3 years.
100%. Christian Welsh,
the White Rhino.
Yeah, the White Rhino was up front there. So, mate, I cannot wait for tonight. I agree with you. It's definitely not as bad as I think. The difference here is with New South Wales anyway, in regards to like you've just got New South Wales just got so many people that are at the top of the table right now. I just like you got Critter at the top of the table. The Panthers essentially are moving towards it. If the comp started 6 weeks late and you just started from that point on, the Panthers are sitting in the top 4. A lot of these players are in, like the Broncos with Payne Haas, they're now top 5 team. So Hudson Young, top tier side. So there's a lot of players in this New South Wales side, whereas I look across to Queensland and I'm trying to think like outside of Money and Grant, most players are from bottom 8 sides, I'm pretty sure. Most players outside of Shibasaki, who's on a debut.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Val Holmes.
Bottom 8.
Hammer.
Bottom 8.
Tino.
Bottom 8.
Yeah. Capewell. Capewell's top 4.
Yep, apologies. Yep, Capewell.
Capewell's top 4.
Didn't make game 1 side.
Ruben Cotter, sort of bottom of the 8, yeah.
No, Cowboys
are they out? Are they out of the 8 now?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so, they've got 5 Cowboys in their team. So there you go. 4 or 5 Cowboys. Tommy Dearden, Jeremiah Nanai,
Cowboys 12th.
Robson. There you go. So, and even like you said, with the New South Wales players that aren't like cemented in the top 8, both the 2 teams that are the most dangerous are the Penrith Panthers and Broncos, and they're on their way up. So, it's going to be juicy.
Oh, yeah. Okay, before we head to a break, man of the match and underrated man of the match. Guy probably won't win it, but he's going to play well and no one's going to know. But not many people are going to recognise it.
Ruben Cotter.
Okay.
If Queensland are to pull off something crazy, I think it's going to come out of. It's going to be one of their forwards. Like it's going to be. I know you said pick one, but it's going to be Capewell, Reuben Cotter, or Carrigan. I think Carrigan might be able to have, miss the first wave in the 20 minutes for Big Papa and come on and play 60 and finish the game.
Okay. We're going to head to a break. After the break, plenty more to talk about, including reports from Paul Kent that Des Hasler will be calling it quits as Titans coach at the end of the season. Oh, the great Justin Horo is with us, and he was just showing me the story. I'll let you tell the people. Hyrox, the new craze. We've got a new CrossFit version. I don't know what's going on these days. What is it?
I did the Hyrox.
You did the Hyrox? I don't know what's going on. Walk me through it, mate.
I did it on Friday, and there must have been a couples. It's been doing the rage. Mitchie, he's smiling already. He already knows what I'm about to say. So there was a couple that were doing the Hyrox on the last exercise, which is the wall ball throws. You got to do 100 reps. Apparently his missus has passed out and someone was recording it and she's shaking. He sort of taps her on the leg, finishes the wall ball throws, and then runs and finishes the run with it. He's getting hammered.
Bro, rightly so, you absolute weirdo. That is so weird.
It is, mate.
Mate, you are so obsessed with it. Like,
do you know what Hyrox is, Kempy?
It's not your personality, I'll tell you that much.
It's about an hour and 15 minutes of conditioning.
It's nothing.
That's what it is.
It's training.
It's training.
It's training.
For an hour and 15 minutes.
Yes, it is literally, you just train, you're being the best trainer.
Yeah.
There you go. So here's your medal for training hard.
You're doing a hectic cardio session, basically.
Mate, when I saw that, there are actually some people defending him in the comment section. I was going, what does this world come to?
That's the world we live in.
Where there are some people in this world that are defending a man that left his wife, she was basically, a girlfriend, sorry.
At least partner. You would think at least partner.
Yeah, shaking.
Not confirmed, but because a mate he could just turn up with a Sheila and it could be a mate. But
even
regardless,
if it's a friend, mate, if you're a mate.
Yeah, regardless.
If we're doing Hyrox together, mate, and you fall over and you're shaking, I'm not going to continue. I'll be like, Scope, you right, mate?
What about Waterboy? Do we just let Waterboy to the side if we're doing a three-way?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, he might.
I would have left Lukey. I would have left my man Lukey. Come on, Lukey.
He might sue me. He might sue me for treating an employee poorly. So I'll do it for that reason, not because he's my mate. No, all jokes aside, mate, that's bizarre to me. Even if it wasn't your partner or your wife, if it was just your, to be honest, even if it was a random,
and even if it was a gold medal for the Olympics and you can see, like, if it's a real friend.
Like emergencies happening.
And an emergency and they're in real danger. You just turn around and go, well, whatever. We've trained like this forever. Like, just make sure that
they're okay because you don't know what's happening. It's insane.
Those two brothers, right, in the marathon, in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Awesome. And one of them stopped to help the other brother. They're all getting overtaken.
He's cramping up and he's seizing up and the brother turned around, seen he was in an awful way. Turned around and grabbed his brother. Someone passed him, and they finished in like second or third or whatever. Yeah. And he threw his brother over the line.
Didn't bail.
That's
on
how you do it.
Yeah, and funnily enough, what's more remembered? We don't know who won the thing, but we remember the story.
I could care less who won.
And so again, even if it wasn't his partner and it was a random, you would still be like, "Are you okay?" Like, where is your humanity, you psycho? I guess that's what the world we're in today. Like, it's all just about gains and photos on Instagram and that. Mate, when I see stuff like that, you know what I always ask? Like, who raised this bloke? I asked the question, like, when you, and look, maybe he didn't have a father figure, but if you did, when you had a conversation about standing there for your mate and doing the right thing and what did your father say to you? Did he say, it's every man for himself, just run? Or did he say, if a fellow human is in pain, maybe help him out if you can?
Yeah, that's the Aussie way. It's the Aussie Kiwi way. The Anzac way.
It is the Anzac way. It really is. It really is.
To do the opposite. let me help out.
Anyway, speaking of a man also in trouble, Desi Hasler, there are reports. Now, interestingly, this report actually leaked a few weeks ago, and Desi Hasler essentially shot it down, saying all just rumours. Now it is, I guess, the drums are beating louder. So Paul Kent talking on his podcast called talking on his podcast, basically saying the veteran coach will step away from the role rather than being sacked. And Holbrook was obviously sacked earlier to bring Hasler in. And Carrie Arness was on the breakfast program this morning and spoke about the Hasler situation. We've got some audio here.
When that story broke around the clauses around Dez's contract, I think that put him under the microscope significantly, and he hasn't been able to turn it around. So they'll call it retirement. but I think it'll be a mutual understanding because, don't forget those clauses. He needs to make the top 8 this year to enact next year's deal. Otherwise, they can part ways with him freely, right? So they can call it whatever they like. But, all the rumblings are that, Des won't be the coach of the Titans next season. And it's been a monumental failure.
Yeah, I know it sounds harsh from Carianis, but unfortunately, the reality of the situation has been a disaster. You had a guy in Holbrook there that I felt was making improvements with that Titans squad. I felt like he was building towards something. Yes, were they world beaters? No, not necessarily. But I definitely, the difference with Holbrook, okay, they made the finals one time under his leadership and actually just got beaten by the Roosters. They actually would have knocked the Roosters off in that. It was on the Gold Coast, I think, actually, that semi-final, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, the Paddy Herbert no pass to Corey Thompson.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, God, I actually just remember that now. That was
That was for them to make the finals, right? Or was that in the finals and to progress?
In the finals, progress. That would have been a second week.
That was the first week of the finals.
Would have been second week.
To get in the second week, yeah.
And so, also, when he was sacked, and I understand he had some clause or whatever, Holbrook, but they had a lot of players about to come back as well. So, unfortunately, this has been a monumental failure. Look, I understand. With the Titans, how many coaches can you keep sucking? How many squads can you have there? At some point, I think the whole joint needs to look at itself and say, why this week are we looking up at the Telstra Premiership and going, the top 4 sides have former sevens from our clubs playing for them? That's what the Titans need to ask themselves. Yeah, okay, there's going to be coaches moving on. Yeah, okay, you can blame certain players not playing well or whatever. Do all the normal stuff. But the big question for the Titans is this. Why are we watching this weekend's rugby league, Sexton, Tanner Boyd, Fogarty, and the last one, Jerome Hughes, all former Titans players? Now, the Jerome Hughes one, that's a bit of mayo in regards to... They get a
pass for that.
Look,
Jerome Hughes was
I'm not going to count the Jerome Hughes one.
One-gamer, playing fullback at the time.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not going to give him a pass for Tanner Boyd, Sexton, and Fogarty. There is no way. What's crazy about the Sexton-Fogarty situation, they got rid of Fogarty to keep Sexton, and then a little bit later got rid of Sexton just for whatever reason.
They're the two. Tanner Boyd, I hope he goes well, and he could go on to have a great career post-Gold Coast Titans. But at no point over the last couple of years, I know he was a huge name, did I look at the Titans and Tanner Boyd and go, geez, he looks like a long-term 7 for the Titans.
But that's because that system there is poor.
Yeah, look, again...
He's leading New South Wales Cup Warriors to 11 in a row.
I know. That is New South Wales Cup, Kempy.
But it's
and like
still
I said,
11 in a row.
I need to see it at first grade, and I hope Tanner Boyd goes well. But I give them, like Jerome Hughes, Tanner Boyd, the Toby Sexton for Fogarty situation. That's the one they really stuffed up.
It was But they also stuffed up Ash Taylor's career as well.
Yeah, but I don't, I was of the opinion similar to you. I was like, Jamal Fogarty, I don't think he's a world beater, but he's a solid half, and there's definitely...
He was a club captain.
He's exactly what they needed at the time, and he's been exactly that for the Canberra Raiders. But if you do make the decision to move off him,
stick with him. Stick with Sexton.
They fully stuffed up by making the decision to move off Sexton so quickly as well. So they're the big two. Right, and I think I've seen you talk about this as well, Kempy, with the clause around, and the clause being mentioned. For sure, it's the end. It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Because when that stuff starts getting leaked, it's over. It's over. Desi's I've never played under Desi. I only hear stories of the boys that and a lot of the guys that I'm close with, like Ches and Foz, love him, but he's a really strong personality. He's really set in his ways, and he strikes me as the sort of guy that he would have felt exactly what you were talking about, where, all right, there's clearly a leak, that this is the beginning of the end. Get on the front foot rather than getting the punt like coaches get regularly or he himself has got the punt in the past. Getting on the front foot, declaring it, coming up with an option where it's all right, we'll see it out at the back end of the season. The thing now, they've obviously stuffed up with the half situation for a while now, and that's what we started with. But whoever coaches, whether it's Desi next year or they get someone new, they need to go and they need to figure out who they want to keep out of Jaden Campbell, AJ Brimson and Keanu Kinney. And they need to go respectfully to at least one of them. At least one of them and go, we love you. 3 into 2 doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And we there has to be an opportunity for you to not only leave us, you'll probably go on and star somewhere else, because all three, in my opinion, have the potential to be top-tier fullbacks, but you can't have all three in the same 13.
This is how much this system struggles, bro. Aaron Clark, at the moment, is the Dally M13 of the year. He couldn't get a start at the Titans. They didn't even want to play him at 13. They would play him off the bench, sometimes at 9. That's my problem at the moment. I'm from the Gold Coast. I've got a massive soft spot for the Titans, but that organisation, there's a reason. Tino has come out and said he needs answers as the direction of the club. Like Tino, he's given his heart and soul to that club. Like the administration there, they need an independent review. They need a complete reform of everything. And you're right, mate. We've been saying for a very long time, it is great that you've got these guns, but they're all fullbacks. And we spoke about earlier, probably you're on the way in here, that a superstar team beats a team of superstars. You've got to select who is best for your game plan, not as who the best 17 players are.
You need to get balance too.
Absolutely.
They've got no balance.
No balance. Like Brimo is not a half. He's a bloody good fullback. Campbell maybe eventually could become a 6. I don't think he's a 7, but he's an incredible fullback. If I'm the Perth Bears, I'm throwing 700-800K at Campbell.
At Campbell, yeah,
absolutely.
Because Brimo and Keanu Kinney are both locked up long term.
Long term. And so if I'm going straight for Campbell as my fullback, or Fa'alongo, probably see how Fa'alongo's injury recovery goes with his hammy. But I'm going for Campbell if I'm the Perth Bears, for sure.
Campbell would be a gun at fullback,
absolute gun,
full time.
And so just got a text there. Give it a spell. Sexton's so wanted he's off to the Super League, and Tanner Boyd is in New South Wales Cup. Brother, the Titans are last. You're telling me that they couldn't use Tanner Boyd right now? They are last on the table, and Sexton off to Super League. We don't know whether there was offers from other clubs. He could have chosen just to go to get away from it. We just don't know.
It's funny with the Sexton one. Like it's a good point though with Sexton heading off to the Super League, and a lot of people have been talking about like it was a reflection of the market for Sexton.
I think he chose to.
I wonder if there are any conversations, at least with the Titans, and I hope there were. I hope it's not like one of those things where we let him go. We didn't think he was a player, because players can improve. They can go to other systems and become better players, and then therefore, it shows a lack of ego if you go, all right, well, he's gone on, he kicked on and had a couple of really good seasons at the Bulldogs. I hope there were at least chats.
Mate, to be honest, I refuse to believe there was no offers for Sexton. That would blow my mind. That there wasn't a single club that was even like, we'll offer you 300K to play reserve grade and be a backup half for us. I find it impossible to believe. Even when he was at the Titans, he led the competition in repeat sets at the Titans. Like he was still a quality 7. You also got to remember, when he was a 7 at the Titans, they weren't last on the table. That's for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just you look at Ash Taylor's career, how poorly that was handled. Like one of the best 7s we've seen in a long time, coming through the grades. That's like, then you look at all these other players that have gone elsewhere. Aaron Clark to the Warriors, he is playing out of his skin week in, week out. Couldn't get a start at the Titans. And so, I just think that they really need a hard look at what is the club's principles? What do we stand for? What do we accept? Are we walking past standards we should be pulling up? At the moment, I think that
So do you think a change of coach will change that, or do you think it goes
things.
all the way through to the front office?
I think Desi's lost his magic a little bit to this generation. I don't know if this generation reacts well to Desi because he's a bit...
His style of coaching?
He's different. I think that I think that administration needs to be held accountable for all these 7s that they've lost all over these years, and why. Like, the Tanner Boyd situation, I know you don't want to hold against him. Mate, his development, they made him a 9. They when he was coming through, he was the Australian Sevens schoolboys number 7. Then all of a sudden, for some reason, they're like, no, you're a 9 now. Turned him into a 9, turned him into a 14. Then when they got desperate for a 7, all of a sudden they want him to be a 7 again. How's that good for his development? If he's a 7, you leave him in 7 at Queensland Cup and you let him learn his trade like Fogarty did in Queensland Cup for a long period of time. Instead of playing him at 9, 14, all these different spots, same with Aaron Clark, 9, 14. It's just, there's been so many decisions there that make no sense. Anyway, we've got a break. Plenty more to talk about after the break, guys. So stay tuned for that. We've also got, how did Cameron Sorrello and the Bulldogs solve their question marks around their roster?
Toby Sexton.
Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We've just got a great text here. Hey, Kempy, Titans also let Josiah Pahulu go to the Storm this year. So the Melbourne Storm want Pahulu. And on top of that, remember what happened at the back end of last year? They tried to not play Pahulu in that last game, so they didn't have to pay him. Here's another name for you. Currently in the New South Wales Blues origin side is Max King.
Maxwell King.
Maxwell King. Hercules' dad.
That's one of the more underrated names in the competition that just never gets enough love.
Yeah, King.
He's got to roll with Maxwell King all the time.
Absolutely,
I would say every interview I get up, hey guys, Maxwell King here, any questions?
Mate, I'd love it. Now,
every presser he goes to.
Did you have something you were going to say lead into this?
So we're talking about players that the Titans have lost, and this is a recurring theme that teams that have been sort of in no man's land for a couple of years, yet so many people text us about players that have left Newcastle and gone on and had great careers, and you think of them. And Joe, you always feel like you always hear Joey and Matty Johns talking about all those players as well. And then the Dragons as well. I feel like the Dragons have missed out on some really good youngsters. And all three of those teams, very similar. They've been from like 6th to 14 or 15th on the ladder for, what, nearly 10 years?
Yeah.
All of them?
Essentially, like maybe if you're being conservative, 5 years at least.
So, that is, for me, that is a front office issue. That is not having something not as simple, but, even your recruitment, like your recruitment and retention and making sure that that's top notch because, there are going to be a few that slip through the cracks, but you can't let your best youngsters go. Like guys that you have identified and put a whole heap of work on. Like your Toby Sextons, who was supposed to be the next guy after Fogarty.
Yeah, I do agree with you, in regards to the Sexton one's the biggest one, just in the fact that you moved Fogarty. On. That makes that just makes it so strange. When Fogarty suited exactly what you needed, a senior player that's a bit older. I know he's not experienced in NRL, but he's experienced in Queensland Cup. It's a bit older, can lead a team around, good kicking game. I mean, look what he's done at the Raiders. They're on top of the table.
Well, that's why he suits the Raiders, because they're so erratic outside of him, and the Titans are exactly the same. They just need a calm, steady head through the middle.
Yeah. Anyway, how do Cameron Ciraldo and the Bulldogs solve their question marks around the top 17? Now, I think that, it's getting a little bit mixed up in the kind of the talk around this. Like, I don't think the Bulldogs are losing because of Galvin. Like, I think that's a very easy out. Like, people go, it's all Galvin's fault. I don't think that at all. However, I do think they need to make a decision of Sexton or Galvin, because I don't think carrying a small body on the bench, including Bailey Haywood, is going to work for them long term. I think that's more of the question, because they lost games before Galvin arrived. So it wasn't like they were just on this crazy run. But I do think that the longer they wait to rip this Band-Aid off, the less games whoever they've got as the main man is going to have before finals footies. I think that's the biggest question. And also, I don't begrudge the Bulldogs saying, we believe we need a higher tier player of Galvin for the long-term future of the club. I think the bigger question is, did you need to get him right now? Could have you waited until next year? But anyway, that's all been done, so there's no more point talking about that. What do you think is the biggest challenge for the Bulldogs, mate?
Yeah, in hindsight, I think they'd be looking at this now going, wish they'd had their time back, run it out with this team, see if they can win the competition and then make the changes next year. I'm the same as you, Kempy, and I think they've got to make the call and the obvious call, and that's Lachlan Galvin to halfback. They clearly haven't prioritised Toby Sexton all year, despite what their results are.
Yeah,
they go and sign this youngster with huge potential that, granted, hasn't completely lived up to the potential tag yet, but a lot of good judges think he's going to go on and become a top-tier player. So why not just get it done early? Because what you're doing by keeping Lachlan Galvin on the bench is he's hovering over Toby Sexton's performances, which is giving him anxiety, or would be giving him anxiety about, like, I bet you Toby Sexton must be going out to games and not saying it out loud, going, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, kick to corners, make your tackles, like just going over everything that could go wrong in his game. And then also it has a dominant effect on Reid Marnie as well, who is now clearly not being prioritised by the Bulldogs as well. So when you move Toby Sexton, you move him into the dummy half position when you've got the full deck of cards, then it throws Reid Marnie's time off as well. And then he's thinking, he might, he's got a dodgy old pass in him every now and again, and he's got he'll get aggressive and give away a penalty like every now and again. After that, if he makes a mistake or gives away a penalty, he must be thinking, I'm gone. I'm going to get pulled here. So it's clearly a factor, and it's clearly affecting those two in particular. Everyone else, no one else will care to the level of Toby Sexton and what Reid Marnie you're feeling at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You just get on with it. You understand it's a part of footy. But I think the quicker they make the decision of either, and this would be super bold, either going with Lachlan Galvin because he's going to be your future, or going, look, it hasn't quite worked out with to begin with, put Lockie in New South Wales Cup. And I know it's not going to happen, but that would be, it's one or the other, because you can't keep them both in the team because they're constantly going to be, Toby's going to be worried about making mistakes, and Lockie's looks like he's coming on wanting to just win the game in 2 or 3 plays every time he gets limited opportunities.
Yeah, I think as well with Lockie, we saw it on the weekend, he played Lockie footy, not Bulldogs footy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the biggest challenge for the Bulldogs is to, and I think he played when he's in his first game because he's there, he's new, so the ego's in, check. He played Bulldogs footy, and that's why he played so well against the Eels, in my opinion. I think against the Broncos, he was really playing essentially the same way that he played at the Tigers, which was, I get the ball, I do what I want. Because that's what the Tigers did for him. They said, mate, it's your team, do whatever you want.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I'm with you, mate. It's just got to be a decision. I think that I'm struggling to understand the idea of like, we're working things out. Like a lot of the answers the Bulldogs are giving don't really add up when you actually sit down and think about it. Now, we got a quick text here. Beak, how could you say Sexton is a quality 7 at Titans? I rate you, mate, but Toby and the GCT board cost Holbrook his career. The Tweed Beak Park player was an abomination all of 23. Well, I'll tell you what, I've done a bit of Googling, young man. So Sexton departed the Titans on July 4th. Guess where the Titans were sitting after 10 rounds in the NRL?
In 23?
In 23, in the top 8. So he mightn't have been that bad, bro. He couldn't have been that bad. And I'll tell you what, it's a long way away from the bottom of the table. All right, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we've got plenty more to talk about, including a bit of Bulldogs chat and then also some tips for the weekend. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. All right, skip a scope. What's the tips for this week, mate?
All right, where are the games? Ooh, Sharks versus Dolphins. I'm an hour about this game. I'm going to go to the Dolphins. I just trust them more.
Okay.
I was thinking the Sharks must win, but I'm going to go to the Dolphins.
Dolphins are the biggest smokies in the comp because them at their best is top 4. As in the way they've played. Them playing their best footy is a top 4 level standard of footy.
Yeah, and when they get you, they don't let up either.
They don't a little bit get you. They just hold the foot.
Storm to beat the Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Roosters with no confidence over the Dragons. Was it Lionel last week who said, I hate the Bulldogs?
There's actually got a text here from Lionel again. Bulldogs bias is so effing old, Horo. You sound like Rothfield.
I'm on the Cowboys, Lionel.
Oh, he's got you, Lionel. 1-0 to Skipper 1-0 to Skipper Scope. He got you, mate.
Warriors to beat the Tigers. Panthers to beat my Eels. And the Broncos to beat Kempy's Titans.
They are my Titans because I'm from the Gold Coast. I got a soft spot for them. Are the Broncos the real deal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Speak to me. Even though when you actually watch the 80 minutes of footy against the Sharks and the Bulldogs, it's quite poor for most of it. They just have 20 minutes of crazy footy.
They're just they're far too talented. And now they're going to get Ben Hunt back. They're going to get Reece Walsh back with, so he'll get through this game and then they'll get another bye to recover next week as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming for the top 4. They're going to apply pressure to the Warriors. If the Warriors can hold on into 4th position, it's going to make the Broncos a lot harder. But I had something responsibly on, or maybe a little bit irresponsibly, on the Broncos about 4 or 5 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. A little cheeky something irresponsibly.
Little cheeky something responsibly. What are you really gambling with for confidential sport? 1-800-858-858.
Very appropriate of you. I like that. But just quickly, the Broncos, the scary thing with them is that if they can play 80 minutes of that 20 minutes, it's like, how do you beat them? How do you beat them? But the problem is they don't do that. So we just need to get 80 minutes out of them. But they're looking pretty good when they do get it all together. Okay, we are going to go to a break. Thanks for joining us, Skip. Appreciate it, mate. And
thanks, Skippy.
We'll see you next week up the Queenslanders. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, a.k.a. the Resi Run. We are here for Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions, save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Give us a text 0457 736 736. Sharkies v Dolphins at Shark Stadium, 8 p.m. Atkinson on the bench with Billy Burns dropping out. Sharks off the bye. Dolphins team news. Sean O'Sullivan returns to the 6 jersey with Nikorima succumbing to a hamstring injury. Hammer back up from Origin. Trey Fuller named in reserves. Max Fine centres Averillo to the wing. Interesting, Averillo to the wing. That's an interesting. Maybe they're they're just lacking a bit of depth in the wing. But you would have thought he would go back to centre. But in this game, I mean, geez, aren't the Sharkies desperate? My God. I know, I really do like the Sharkies. A very likeable team. I'm a huge fan of Fitzy. I just don't know where it all went wrong. I wonder whether, I do look at him and I go, okay, I wonder whether Fitzy needs to like identify a couple of mongrels in the squad and just go, boys, we just probably need a little bit more mongrel in these big moments to kind of close games out. I also wonder, for a team which is as settled as the Sharkies are, is there enough pressure on spots? Like, is there enough pressure on each position to continue performing? I mean, you look at Sexton after Galvin arrived at the club. Sexton's played his best footy. All the great clubs usually have a lot of pressure for positions, and I just wonder whether Fitzy kind of needs to begin to, I hate the word threaten, but just let the boys know that it's not going to be acceptable if we continue to fall down the ladder like this. Anything less than a top 8 finish is unacceptable this year. I mean, to be fair, they really should be in the top 4. They're really one of the only teams that don't get, one of the very few teams that don't get hit by Origin. And if anything, the Origin period's been the worst thing that could happen to them. And ever since that win against Melbourne Storm, it's just been, been tough. It's been tough. So desperate for a win. The tough thing is for the Sharkies that they face is like, yeah, okay, you can move Nico to 6 or Trindle to 7. You can't really move Atkinson into 6 because he's going next year. And also, like, I don't know if that's the right call. And so I just don't know, like, where do you make the changes? That's the tough thing. What do you reckon, mate?
Can I throw something at you? You're talking about having the pressure on the players. Do you think we would have already seen Fitzy make a change and put Atkinson in if Atkinson wasn't going? Because I feel like he's always performed. He's always been really, really good. But
the thing is, though, is like Atkinson, when he's come on as a middle or a centre or whatever, he's had a couple of good games, but he's also been a bit quiet. Yeah, it's a tough question. It really is because, are they really a better team without Hines or Trindle in it?
No,
I don't know if they are. I don't know if they are. I know people like to make out like it's absolutely they are. It's like, for example, Nico Hines right now, as much as you want to talk about the big moments and struggling to ice games out, which is fair, especially against the Broncos, I think that he had a great first half. Second half, he just a couple things that we want back. But if you actually take him out of the side, you actually look at Hines' stats. I think he's leading the comp with 4 line break assists.
Yeah, wow. Yep.
So it's kind of like, okay, you can take him out of the side, but let's say his name's not Nico Hines and it's just another name. You're taking out the number 1 line break assist person in the comp. Like, that's a big out to take. Maybe Atkinson could become that, but I don't know. Maybe not. And so, me personally, I just think that they need to move Hines to 6. It's really just the 7 jersey that's the big issue at the Sharkies. I really think that if you just moved into a 6 jersey, I think a lot of the talk would stop around Hines, because right now, I think most reasonable people could say Hines is a bloody good player. It's just, is he the guy that's suited to the big pressure moments when the game is on the line? Now, he has had moments where he scored conversions to win games and dropped goals or whatever, but I just reckon that Trindle might be more suited to that 7 jersey in that perspective. And I also think that if you put Trindle in that 7 jersey, he's not on $1 million, so people will expect a little bit less. I just feel like Hines gets to continue playing the game that he plays, which is a really good attacking footy player. His defence has also been quite good at times. Sometimes he can miss a tackle here or there, like any half. And then you get Trindle at 7. I actually feel like Trindle at 7 just reduces a lot of noise around the club. Like, granted, I get it. Like, when it happens, there'll be a lot of noise, but I don't know. What do you reckon, mate? What are your thoughts?
And the other thing is, where are you going to put Nico on however much it is, $900,000, $1 million? You're not going to push out Will Kennedy, who has been really, really good. He's had some quieter weeks since he was killing it for the Dally M leaderboard. But yeah, look, I completely agree, to be honest. I think if you put Trindle at 7, people are going to expect less than what they do for the marquee Nico Hines. Let Trindle play his game, move Nico to 6, let him play his game. And then you have Blake Brayley, who's been ultra consistent, just steering them around as well.
I just think it suits the situation better right now. Just takes you get Hines can do exactly what he's already doing, but with less pressure, and Trindle can be the main man. I think Trindle wants to be the main man. Like I really do. And I'm just looking here, and it's not for lack of trying. So Nicho Hines is second in the comp for line engagements. So like a lot of people don't like. What's crazy is Isaiah Katoa. He has 189 line engagements. The next best is Nicho Hines at 112. So he's got essentially, like I'll just say, 80 more line engagements. Like that's crazy, absolutely crazy for such a young fella. And also like Nicho Hines right now, he's fourth in the competition for try assists, and the only person at number. Katoa is the only other 17. He's got 17 try assists. But outside of that, it's Scott Drinkwater and Munster. Whereas Nicho Hines, if you took Katoa out of that, he would have the most try assists for number 7. And so, like, again, I know I'm not suggesting that Nicho's been perfect this year at all. And I'm not trying to run defence. I've been critical of him at times closing games out. But I just think that this black and white talk about, no good. It's like, it's just not true. He's got the most line break assists, the second most try assists for a 7 in the game. But that's why I go, you can get all these stats I'm talking about in a 6 jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's coming from a bloke that I'll put my hand up. I was like, no, coming into this year, I'd have Hines at 7. So I'm happy to say, I got it wrong. But you get all the same things without all this extra pressure.
And there's no discussion about that he is second in these stats. No one even talks about it.
No one talks about it.
They talk about the missed tackle or the
bad
getting
kick
falling
10
over.
minutes to go, yeah.
Yeah, and granted, I'm guilty of it as well. As a Sharks fan, I'm not coming out of it going like, oh, how's his try assist, how's his line break assist?
Yeah.
I'm coming out of it going like, oh, I missed that conversion.
For sure. Which again, as a 7, he's your marquee man and he's in the 7 jersey. That's understandable. But like, it just unfortunately when you get paid $1 million, you're expected to have all those try assists, but you're also expected to make those big plays. But that's where I just reckon you put him in the 6 jersey and you make it clear that Trindle's now leading the ship. And all of a sudden, I think a lot of Sharkies fans would go, okay, now when those big plays happens, I expect Trindle to take care of it. You know what I'm saying?
I'd love to see it.
And so what's crazy is nothing would change other than the numbers on their back, and it dramatically reduces the pressure on everyone. And I understand why Fitzy stayed strong with it, but I feel like it's getting to the point where you just got to bite the bullet, cop the news for the first week. It'll go away after 7 days.
Big time.
What are your thoughts as a Sharkies fan?
Look, I do think it's possibly time to make the call. Although in saying that, in my heart of hearts, this weekend is huge. Coming up against Katoa, like he said, he's got 70-ish or 80-ish on him for was it line engagements? Line engagements. Like that's so. I feel like Nicho could silence some people this weekend if he outperforms Katoa. But long term, I fully agree. I think Nicho at 6, Trindle at 7, and just step back and let it happen. And
also, like the people go, oh, but he's on $1 million. There's plenty of teams that their 6 is on $1 million, or their 1's on $1 million, and their 7 is on a little bit less. Like I reckon Reynolds is on less than what Ezra Mam's on right now. I'm sure there are, like, Munster would be on more probably than Hughes right now, and Hughes is Dally M winner.
Yep.
So it's not Dearden at 6 would have been on more than, you know what I mean? It's not normal. It's not abnormal for that to happen. And just quickly now on the Dolphins, as I said, bro, like the scary thing with the Dolphins is like, if they can just get it to work and play their best footy, like if they can play at their best, they are a true dark horse of the competition. And the scary thing for the Dolphins is if they can just squeeze into the 8 and have 4 games at their best on the trot, who knows who they could upset. They're the only team to have wins, I think, over Melbourne Storm, the Panthers and the Bulldogs, I'm pretty sure, this year. If
they can keep people fit as well.
And half their team's gone.
Exactly. Like they're so unlucky with things. And then they seem to be kind of really building with Katoa and Cody Nikorima, it was, and Cody's out again. So, yeah, look, Sean O'Sullivan back in.
Mate, Isaiah Katoa, I know I glaze him every chance I get, but, mate, seriously.
And the reports out of the camp this week, like for the New South Wales camp, is that he's just come in, taken to it like a duck to water, absolutely killed it. So it is exciting as a Blues. I don't know how you feel as a Maroon.
Mate, I've never seen a 7 so young play so well. I really haven't. Like, I don't think we've ever seen a 7 be this good so young. Going to be super interesting. If I'm the Dolphins, he gets a 10-year deal immediately. Like, I would have already been in discussions with it. I just think that this guy is so special. The question for Isaiah Katoa will be, though, is that, although he's super happy there at the Dolphins now or whatever, this kid, he deserves to win premierships.
Yep.
He really does. Like, he is so special, so talented. If you've ever had a chat with him or watch any interviews, geez, he's switched on for how old he is too. Speaks really well. Alrighty, we've got some text here. Hines at 6 might be like Brooks at Manly. Oh, I see what you're getting at there, because like ever since Brooks went to Manly at 6, no one's even discussed him. He's out. He's not in the headlines. So might be a blessing. Kempy, Hines is a 7. Ramian's form in the last 6 weeks has gone backwards, and it's all Trindle going sideways. Why have people always got to judge players by what they get paid? Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. I do, because I think that Ramian's unfortunately just been a bit of a form slump. He's been so consistent for so long, so a little bit of form. And I do think sometimes Trindle does get away with some poor games because everyone's focused on Hines. Like, all the blame is focused on Hines, and sometimes Trindle gets a bit unscathed. And funnily enough, I think even Trindle has kind of alluded to that in interviews when people try to kind of like speak negatively about Hines. He does say, like, guys, there's other issues as well in this team that, aren't necessarily going right. So I do agree with your sentiment. Like, I do agree with your sentiment that, like, the easy out is just to look at Hines and say he's the problem. But if you actually watch the Sharkies play, it's more than that. It really is more than that. Like, yes, there are moments in games when the game's on the line where it might be a bad kick or whatever, but it's more than that. Okay, we're going to head to a break, and then when we come back, we're going to do Knights v. the Storm. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, Knights team news. Fletcher Hunt into the side at fullback with KP out with a Liz Frank injury. Greg Marju returns to pushing out Schiller. Leo Thompson returns to suspension, which moves Frizzell to lock, and Brayley drops to the bench with Crossland starting at 9. And Storm team news. Pappenhausen cleared to return after missing Cowboys game with a calf tightness. Nick Meaney returns to centre. And Broncos bound. Grant Anderson to the wing. All Origin reps have been named in reserves with question marks around backing up, especially Munster, obviously. And Howarth named as 18th man, recovering from appendicitis. Knights versus the Storm. I guess, the thing with the Knights, and they do this bloody every year, they're obviously missing KP for essentially the rest of the year. But what just blows my mind, with how crazy the year has been, they still are only 2 wins outside the 8. Now, unfortunately, the KP injury has just come at the totally wrong time, because I just don't know how they're going to scrape those 2 wins back, especially when you've got the Roosters and the Seagulls beginning to... I know the Roosters lost on the weekend, but them at full strength, I think, are a top 8 side. Manly beginning to find form. And Sharks actually have enough wins to be at least equal with the Seagulls, which is 8 wins. And so I just look at it and I just go, it's going to be really, really tough for teams like the Dragons, the Cowboys, the Knights, the Tigers, because they're all on 6 wins. And then underneath that, it goes 5 wins, Rabbitohs 6 wins, Titans 4 wins. So that everything from 11th down, you're essentially going to have to go on a bit of a run, I think, because as I said, it's not necessarily, obviously, unless the Sharks can't turn it around. But I do believe that it looks like the Manly Seagulls. I don't think the Manly Seagulls are going to be like, outstanding for the rest of the year, but they definitely do look better. The Roosters definitely do look better. I know they had a little bit of a loss. So super interesting time. The Knights desperate for a win, though. In regards to the Melbourne Storm, I am so intrigued to see how they bounce out of this Origin series, because I just have a sneaking suspicion that, look, they've won, I think it's like 6 on the trot now, something like that, the Melbourne Storm. But for at least 4 out of those 6 games or whatever it is, they've looked really sloppy. Like, come out first 20 minutes, blown teams off the park, and then all of a sudden it's bloody, hot potato footy, bunch of errors, let the team back in the side. And so I just get a sneaking suspicion with the Storm that Bellamy is almost building towards this point of the year. And as he leaves and he gets out of Origin footy, we may see them go to a whole new level. And I think that we saw a glimpse of it against the Sharkies, where they were absolutely ruthless. They just were so patient, didn't play silly. The Sharkies were in that game until the 60th minute, or even the 65th. And then all of a sudden, the Storm just go, eventually you're going to crack and break and we're going to score a bunch of tries. And that's what happened. They ended up scoring 30 points and it was a blowout. And that's the Storm that scares me. And I really just wonder whether they're building towards the back end of this year. And so it's going to be super interesting this game to see. The Knights actually tend to do all right against the Storm at times with their good, gritty defence. What do you reckon with this game, mate?
I was watching that. Sharks game, and I was saying to Maddie, like, I ended up going to do something with my daughter when it was 12-6, and I was like, okay, all right. After the week before where we dropped it against the Bronx, I was like, okay, we're looking okay. 12-6 against Storm, that's all right. Came back and they had just turned it on, just absolutely turned it on, and that's a scary thing because they looked ruthless in the highlights. Mm-hmm. But I feel like they could have been better as well.
Oh, they still got more in them.
Like, so much more in them. For the Knights, to go on a run without KP, I think they could be okay if they had Fletcher Sharp. But then they've got no Fletcher Sharp either. Mm-hmm. So the backup to KP would obviously be him. He's out too. So you're looking at where the game breaks open.
Yeah.
And I don't see it.
And I look at this Knights side, and for a team that, has managed to make the finals so many years in a row, there's so much questions that I have about them next year. Like who's their 6 and 7's going to be? Like, yeah, obviously it's Brown and Sharp, I guess. But like, what style of footy are they going to play? Is KP going to be there long term? Their front row rotation, Leo Thompson, he's gone. Jacob Saifidi obviously still there. There's just like a lot of questions I have about the Knights, and is even Adam O'Brien going to be there next year? And so, the tough thing for the Knights over the last past years is that they've had so many different people over the last, I'll just say, 8 years that are like the team managers or the football managers or whatever that have a different idea of building a squad. And I know it's annoying to hear from Knights fans, but I really think they if you really take a look at that decision to play Ponga at 6, it just stuffed their roster up for the next 5 years. That's how much it can affect your salary. Because guess what happens? So KP gets moved to 6. He demands it, or whatever. That's what the story is. But he gets moved there, whoever. And that's actually not on KP. That's the coach's responsibility to say, no, I'm taking your fullback. But anyway, he moves to 6. They trade an under-19 New South Wales front rower for Lockie Miller from the Sharkies. He comes, plays fullback. Then we realise that KP just not in the front line. He hasn't had enough reps under his belt. Really good in attack, but just not working in the front line. They move KP back to fullback. They release Lockie Miller. And ever since then, they've been struggling to get a top-tier half at the club. They get Hastings because Hastings is, they managed to get Hastings because although he's a solid player, there's quite a few clubs that just won't kind of go near him. And then that whole thing doesn't work out, so he gets moved on and put into reserve grade. And they get Cogger, but that doesn't seem to be. So it's just, I just think there's, ever since that Ponga to 6, they've just really struggled with their roster and how to balance it and how to make it. Because, again, for a whole year, they weren't recruiting halves because they had KP in the halves. Now they've got Dylan Brown on a 10-year deal. Yeah, it's a tough situation. I will say they got some of the best in the business when it comes to footy managers. And Peter Parr and O'Sullivan, like, they are seriously some of the best in the business.
If they can lock in a 6 and a 7, like, week to week, that can steer them around. You've got people like Dylan Lucas running lines off them.
He's been outstanding.
And then they're back. I'm going to say back 5 because I'm going to throw Fletcher Hunt in there as well. But they're back 5. Dom Young, Dane Gagai, Bradman Best, and Greg Marzu. That's a great backline.
Well, apparently they don't want Dane Gagai for $400K.
Which, again, is
surprising. Now,
the experience.
There is a young guy that's been playing that's been pretty good, coming through the grade, so maybe they're going to lean into that. I actually think that the biggest issue at the moment is in their forwards. Like, their front row, they got Jacob Saifidi, who on his day is outstanding, but losing Leo Thompson, I look at their front row and I just think they're a bit light on at the moment.
Because right now I think like Matt Croker comes on as a prop, right?
I think so.
And then they've got people like Jack Hetherington in the reserves.
Yeah.
But if you lose Leo Thompson, who's backing up Saifidi there?
Yeah, 100%.
Thompson's gone.
And they've lost Daniel Saifidi as well. So that's probably the intriguing bit about the Knights. But yeah, look, big game for the Knights. Essentially do or die. For the Knights. So we'll see how they go. Alrighty, guys, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to continue to review some rugby league. Welcome back to the Captain's Run, brought to you by Chemist Warehouse. Get discounted prescriptions and save more money at Chemist Warehouse. Alrighty, Dragons v Roosters. Dragons v Roosters are, okay, Luciane Leilua and Hamish Stewart return with Michael Molo moving to the bench. Michael Molo was outstanding last week. Absolutely outstanding. Fafita, Pacifica Tonga dropping out. Val Holmes named to back up after Origin. Sam Walker makes his long-awaited return to the NRL after a thumb injury pushed it back. Return from ACL suffered last year. Billy Smith and Victor Radley return in a boost for the Tricolours. Origin reps all named to back up. Why do the Roosters get called the Tricolours when many clubs have three colours?
Yeah, it's a great question. Eternal question.
That is ridiculous.
Someone figure that out. How many clubs would have three colours?
Heaps.
Bronx, maroon, gold, white.
Yeah, maroon, gold, white.
Sharks, black,
white, and blue.
Yep.
Wow. There'd be quite a few. Storm, purple, dark purple, and yellow, I think.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of clubs have three colours.
Wonder where. Yeah. Fletch would know, surely.
Did Politis did he trademark three colours? He might have. It always goes back to Politis.
It's business.
Everything goes back to Politis. But why do they get called the Tricolours? That's outrageous. You know what else I think is actually outrageous? And I know that he defined Origin, but I can't believe you New South Welshmen let us get away with calling it the Wally Lewis medal. I can't.
Every year. It's
Surely
upsetting.
it should be called like the Lewis Johns medal or something like that.
Yeah, they were talking about that the other day, right? But then is it Joey's kid is called Lewis?
Well, either, or you
Lewis
call it,
Johns?
you could call it the Lewis Johns medal, or you could just like, if a Blues player gets it, it's called the Andrew Johns medal.
I like that.
If the Wally Lewis medal for the Queenslander. Look, I know it's a unique situation because he is, he's a big part in why Origin is why it's not just a big part, like a friggin' huge part as to why Origin is where it's at today. But yeah, just you put the Wally Lewis medal around your neck after you've just beaten Queensland. Maybe it makes it feel good, like I got your Wally Lewis around my neck while we just towed you up. I don't know, but it is very okay. Got some text here actually because the Roosters are a traditional team. They originally didn't have an emblem, and they had three colours: red, white, and blue. Baby, is that fact? Can you text in and say, are you just saying that as a Roosters fan, or is that actually the truth that they originally didn't have a emblem and that's why they were called the Tricolours? Because that's actually a really, really cool fact. Really, really cool fact if it is true. And it makes sense. It does make sense. Okay, Roosters, Dragons. Now, I will say that the Dragons have been incredibly brave over the last couple of weeks, which I think the Dragons fans can be quite proud of. They haven't. Against the Eels, they had no bench. Their winger couldn't lift his arm, but they managed to hang in there and win the game. Last week, yeah, they let it get away from them a bit, but you have to remember, they lost by, was it 4 points, to the best team in the comp, period. And so even if you would go down to Canberra and lose, I don't know, let's say you lost 16-4, that's a good result for a team that's outside the 8, playing the best team in the comp. That's one thing I do feel with some fans is unless you get the win, there's nothing to be happy about. But I'm always of the mind of, where's my team at and who are they playing? So if Broncos lose 8-6 to the Raiders, obviously I'm a little bit disappointed, but I'm also that's the best team in the comp. We're probably 2 points behind them right now. And so with the Dragons, I like the passion, I like the fight. And what excites me most about the Dragons is this young forward pack that's coming through. Hamish Stewart, Michael Molo, the Couchman brothers, Egan. They actually have, if they're all fit, all these young guys, their starting forward pack is 22 and down and guns. And that, I would argue that maybe outside the Roosters, or maybe better than the Roosters, they have the best young forward pack coming through with potential in the comp right now. And so if I'm a Dragons fan, I'm really just focusing. I don't think Dragons make the 8. I think we spoke about it early in the year, but they just dropped too many close games early in the year. And so that's what's cost them this season, is those early games. In regards to the Roosters, I actually got some text here. So Kempy, the Roosters were called Tricolours due to their iconic strip. All other teams at the time only had 2 colours. Got another one. In 1908, they're the only team with 3 colours. Nothing to do with Politis. I was obviously joking when I said that. East were the only team with tricolours in the original 6 teams. Nothing to get out of shape about. It wasn't out of shape, mate. We're just talking. They've won the... Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for letting us know. That's actually a really cool insight, why they're called the tricolours. All the traditional clubs prior to 1967 all only have 2 colours. That's really, really cool. That's really cool. Thanks for texting that in. And then there's, in regards to the medal, the Origin medal should pay homage to history and be named the Dick Tosser medal. Okay. I wouldn't... I reckon Lewis Johns is the best. Or Johns Lewis. You know, because if his son's named Lewis, then you just... Sorry, is his son named...
His son is called Lewis Johns, I believe. Joey's son.
Oh, Joey's son.
Joey's son is called Lewis Johns, like his actual name.
That's cool, though. I like that. I don't mind that. But then you could just call it the Johns Lewis medal.
Yeah, mix it up.
Mix it up. And so, thanks for all the text in regards to the Roosters tricolours, guys. That's a really cool bit of history there. Really cool bit of history. You know, I'm interested in how many people that listen to this that know that. That's crazy.
So good. That's why you love the text line.
It's a good part of the text line. All of this abuse is the bad part of the text line that I don't read out. Okay, in regards to this game, I reckon the Roosters win. But my big watch for this game, it's Sam Walker. Talk about the forgotten man. We're talking about a 21-year-old whiz kid, 22-year-old, 21, 22, that truly plays so unique to any other player in the competition. There's not a single 7 that plays like Sam Walker. And so I cannot wait to see this guy back playing for the Roosters, seeing, just his super slick style of play, his short kicking game. Can't wait to see that again. So I think the Roosters get the job done here against the Dragons. But I think it's going to be a close game, super close game. Got a text here. The Hodgenator. I hate being called the Wally Lewis medal. It should have been called Artie Beeson medal. He played for both New South Wales and Queensland. Yeah, okay, I don't mind that. The only thing is I don't like taking it off someone like right now though. That would be a bit weird. Okay. Next game, Cowboys v the Bulldogs. Cowboys all Origin reps named to back up. Murray Talangi on the reserves as he looks to return from knee injury. Sam McIntyre and Johnny Bateman sidelined with calf and groin injuries respectively. And Bulldogs team news, Burton returns to 6 jersey with Crichton back in the centres if he clears game 3. Hayward to start at lock. Kiraz is 18 man for the Blues, has been named to start for the Bulldogs. And Montoya out for 6 weeks after surgery on the neck issue. I've got to say, very, very surprised that I know he said we put Burton there because Crichton was out. But when you look in reserve grade, they had some bloody good outside backs playing in reserve grade on the weekend, the Bulldogs. Blake Wilson is one of them. And so I just don't, I don't know. I just feel like Serraldo's explanation, I understand why he can't probably give us a full insight into what's going on, but I felt like it was a bit of a, I didn't really buy it fully, if I'm being honest. The fact that, we put Burton there because Critter wasn't available and, we had no depth in the centres, essentially what the implication was. And I don't know about that. I disagree. I think that they were trying to see, could we go the rest of the year with Sexton, Galvin, Burton at centre. But unfortunately, so they've gone back to Galvin's coming off the bench, Sexton's at 7, Burton's at 6. Because honestly, they probably win that game if Burton's at 6. They probably do because they got out to such a good start. And he probably would have been able to close the game out at 6, maybe a little bit better than the Galvin. Galvin just had a couple of errors that cost him quite dearly. But the Bulldogs, I will say, look, I still have them as a potential premiership threat, but I am getting a bit more worried about their record against top 8 sides. So I think their record against top 8 sides like 2 from 8 or something like that, or something along those lines. It's not great. It's not great. So lost to the Broncos twice, lost to the Panthers, lost to the Dolphins, had a lot of injuries there, lost to the Storm. Have they played the Storm? I don't think they have. Anyway, what I do know is their record against the top 8 side. Oh my God! Here's the text we were talking about. Blake Wilson isn't a centre, you clown. Oh my God! That was one of the people I mentioned, brother. There are other people in that reserve grade that could move into the centres, or you could move to push wingers into centre. There's a million different things you could do before moving your 5/8 to centre. Like, for example, an Ari Tuala, who is a centre, was named there as well. And Blake Wilson. So basically, they initially named Wilson on the wing, Bronson Cherry in the centres, Tuala in the centres, Montoya on the wing. So they absolutely could have had Tuala, who definitely is a centre, could have played centre, whilst Blake Wilson could have played on the wing. Anyway, we're going to head to a break. Oh, did you get the record up against the Bulldogs at all? I'll tell you what, we'll head to a break, and then what we'll do when we come back, we'll get the Bulldogs record against top 8 sides. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. Alrighty, we've got that stat for you. Mitch, mate, what do we got?
Mate, they've played top 8 teams 5 times this year. They've won 1. Oof. So that was against the Raiders in round 10. That was a 32-20 victory. The other 4 times, lost twice to the Broncos, lost to the Dolphins, and that 8-6 game against the Panthers.
And the Raiders game that they won, that first half, they obviously got,
and just they flew
smashed,
back.
and then obviously flew back. So, little bit concerning, like it's actually a little bit. I'm not saying that they're at the same place as the Sharkies last year, but that was the question of the Sharkies a couple of years ago against top 8 sides. They couldn't really get the win. Then they got into finals footy and they couldn't get the win. So it's something that they definitely need to address. About the Dragons' young forwards coming through, we also have Loko Pacifica Tonga, Jacob Halangu coming through with young King Tonga in the halves. They really are a couple of missing pieces away from a good team. I think wingers are so underrated these days, and we like the big carries that the other teams get out of their back 3. Peter. And then just a deeper insight from Bondi Jack with the Roosters. Beak. The Roosters were named the Tricolours after French Les Tricolours, red, white and blue since 1908 to after 1945 and before they were Chooks. Bondi Jack. Thanks for that insight. Great stuff. Okay. I actually didn't speak about the Cowboys, but listen, they definitely need a win. Oh, my God. Okay, now Warriors v. the West Tigers. Warriors, Tuapiki lines up at fullback, C&K out knee injury. Tanner Boyd to replace Luke Metcalf at 7. DWZ makes early return from ankle injury. Capewell named among the reserves, game 3. Luai named to back up back up with Shift Stewie to the centres. Coruscant returns from concussion. Tristan Hope moves to the bench. Jack Bird returns to bench after missing last two weeks through illness. Now, really good win from the Tigers last week. Now, I don't expect them to win this game. However, it would almost undo all their great work if they get towed up by the Warriors. The scary thing is they are facing a Warriors side that they're not desperate for a win, but if they are to stay in the top 8, they really can't afford to drop this game because this is one of their games that they should probably win. And if the Broncos continue this strange form, because they don't play 80 minutes of good footy, but they're winning, against better sides, then they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on the Warriors. So the Warriors essentially have to they have to win, I think it's like 6 from 8 games or something like that. And Broncos have to be almost perfect. So let's just say the Warriors have to win 5 from 8 games to go on. So I think it's going to be a tough ask for the Tigers. Okay, now to the Eels versus Panthers. I'll just go straight into the game. With the Panthers, I'm really, really intrigued to see the Panthers after this origin period. Like, are they truly back? I think they are. I don't think they'll reach the heights of last couple of years because I think they've got a lot of young fellas there. In saying that, mate, I was wrong earlier. I counted them out earlier this year. I said they were done. I just thought that this young Panthers group just didn't have enough time to learn the things that they needed to learn and develop to make themselves a premiership threat this year. Well, I was wrong with that. For me, I personally think they are a premiership threat, and they don't even need to make the top 4. They just need to make the top 8. And I tell you what, could you imagine, let's say you're the Dolphins, and even though the Dolphins have beaten them, but let's say you're the Dolphins, and it's the first year you make finals, and you're 7th or something like that, or 6th, and then you've got to play the freaking 4-time premiers that don't make the top 4. How frustrating would that be after week 1? And so, with this game, I see the Panthers getting the job done. I just think that without Moses, it's going to be very, very tough for the Eels. But Talon De Silva, he'll be named to debut for the Eels, which is good to see. Now to Titans-Broncos. Jaden Campbell named at halfback, returning from concussion. Fafita named to the bench, returning from ankle injury. Tino named to back up to game 3. All 3 origin reps for the Broncos are back up. Walsh named to number 1 jersey. Cobbo back to the bench. That's interesting that he's going to carry Cobbo on the bench. Ben Hunt named to hooker. Debutant Ben Tolte drops out from last week's over the dog. Jesse Arthur listed in reserves. Could be a late call-up. I tell you what, I got to say, it's a bit of a danger game for the Broncos because, as I've been saying, they actually haven't been playing like 80 minutes of good rugby league. They've just been so talented that when they decide to put the foot down, teams can't go with them in the back end of games. And so what I'm hoping for with the Broncos obviously is a win, but just a disciplined, controlled, high percentage completion rate, get the job done. Honestly, I hope it's similar to the Storm over the Sharks a few weeks ago, where it was like a bit of a grindy affair and then they just walk away with it in the end. Whereas if they go out there trying to score points off the first play, I almost feel like that'll invite the Titans into the contest. So hopefully they get the win there. Okay, we're going to head to a break. After the break, we're going to wrap up the show. Alrighty, that is the show done and dusted, guys. First hour, we talked Cleary. We talked handling pressure. We talked building the boys up, making sure the emotion is channeled correctly. We talked about the Bulldogs and the situation they're in. We talk about Desi Hasler and the Titans, what's going on there, so much more. So make sure to subscribe to us on our Apple and Spotify, The Captain's Run. Make sure to download the SEN app so you can listen to all the great shows. The Run Home is next. You do not want to miss it. They'll be actually live from Accor Stadium, joined by Braith and Nasta, the man with the best tan in the game, and West Tigers' Alex Twoll as well will be joining them. So you want to stay tuned for the Run Home. Don't forget, guys, Grumpy Coffee. Make sure to grab your Grumpy Coffee from grumpycoffee.com.au. Okay, I got a text here to finish up. Kempy, we don't have to see eye to eye to have respect for one another. Don't pay attention to any flogs who name call. Enjoy tonight's game, but hopefully not as much as me. Newy Blue. That's a good way to end it. That's a bloody good way to end it. Makes me feel good in the heart. Alrighty, guys, enjoy your Origin Rugby League. May the best team win and go Queensland.